Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Unicorn Painter. Today we're gonna be painting some Archo flagellants, starting with some purple shadow. It's a nocturnal color which I really love, but I haven't found another equivalent on any other range. So if you know any, please let me know. Same with gold flesh, which is a very desaturated purplish gray, which I love to create this sort of very sickly skin look, you know, just a little bit of airbrushing, or even if you're dry brushing it or using a sponge to stipulate on top, it will work amazing. I'm trying not to cover everything, but, you know, leaving quite a bit of the purple shadow in the recesses, and I want to unify the look of the skin while trying to make it look as unhealthy as possible. So I'm using Vampire Flesh, a speed paint like color from AK, heavily diluted with speed paint medium to create like a unifying wash for all the skin that will make it slightly more sicklish looking. Then I'm just going with the same flesh color to highlight everything a little bit, mixing a little bit of ivory in the end to create the highest highlights so it looks more reasonable, I want to say. Green black, as always, is our main color for anything that is going to be, in this case, clothing, metals, or any other color that requires a black base coat, or it's just going to be black. I'm applying it on the body clothes, the weapons that they have, and trying to establish a little bit the base colors for everything, and like seeing if the skin looks okay when put in contrast with the other colors of the miniature, and even if they're just barely plucked out. I wanted to take my time with them a little bit and create something that, even if it's quite different in color, respects a lot of the same principles for the sisters that I've been painting, you know, that desaturated gold look. Maybe I went a little bit too warm with the shadows in the flesh, but I think they look the part, you know, the sicklish random creatures that they throw at enemies. Satchel Brown is my favorite way of creating anything that has to do with leather, and I use it just a little bit because I want to use some of the colors that I use in the main army for the masks, some of the leather straps, and then we'll use it a bit later for the wash on the base as usual. I also try and catch some of the tabards with it. I think some I flooded them a little bit too much and they weren't extremely dark. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm done. And then I realized some of them have like colors, which I could have painted silver, but I wanted some more of the leather color before we go into metallics. I use this mix of gold on my army as like a unifying thing, so I needed to find some places that I could put it on. So the casings, if you want to imagine them like that, for the neural interface or whatever they are getting bombarded by religious imagery, and some of the parts on the weapon, like the casing for the blade on the arm and the whip like appendix. But not too much, but I wanted to still have all the main colors that I use for my army, as I'm not going to be using the white-ish blue that I paint the main armors for the sisters as. They are like quite daunting a little bit to paint something so detailed that has many different colors, as you can create quite quickly a pastiche of them. So I tried to think really hard where I was applying everything, and like the always gunmetal, and then we wash it with strong tone, a little bit diluted with speed paint medium to create like, I don't know, two parts wash, one part medium, you know, so it's potent but not as strong as it was straight out of the pot. And I wash everything that's going to be metallic, but that is metallic, and the leather. And then we go to my favorite part, which is diluting Aqua Alchemy into like a wash, like a thickly almost contrast paint wash, and create all the baseline for the Verdigris effects. And the good thing is, like, if you apply it over black, it will create like a sort of glowy look instead of like Verdigris. So I use the same paint to create two slightly different effects on the miniatures, but at the same time they are not clashing, which I think it was the important bit. As always, Brigandine Brown for our bases. You can paint it with a brush. I opted to use the Airbrush, as I can just hit a little bit the feeds, the miniature, so it looks like they've been trotting on that same ground and it's not like completely different, and they're a bit more integrated in them. I needed a little bit more light to create like then the wash and everything, so I just mixed a little bit of bone color into them before I got some much needed coffee and prepare my wet palette for all the other colors that the miniature needed. Starting with Verdigris, which it's just going to reinforce the ones that we created already. It's like a sort of lighter color that will go into only the gold parts. And then, as I said before, we're going to dilute the Satchel Brown that we use for the leather bits to create the wash, to unify the bases and add a bit more depth after we highlighted it with a little bit of a bone color on the edges. Before we go into the urban buff as a highlight, both on the leather and the bases, to create a bit of a more realistic looking leather, and on the black to establish the same highlights as the rest of the miniature. Here I spent a long time just picking up all the scars that they have on their bodies with some Carbon Crimson, I think that's called. But it's the old one, which is amazing, and I'm very happy that I still have like quite a bit of it left to create all the scarring and everything. Then I used some ivory, which is a really, really light color, almost white, but it has a little bit of warmth in it, to paint the vials, and I diluted it even more and put it on the lenses, if you want to call them like that, like anything that was like eyes and visors of the miniatures. So I could use some speed paint and create the vials on the back, you know, the drugs that they get injected with to go into battle, and use some Plasmatic Bold, as usually it is my like lens color for everything. And of course you could not lack a lot of blood. When I mean a lot, I mean a lot. I didn't want to use like a toothbrush or anything to create like splatters, because these people were literally drenched in it. So I just stippled it with a sponge before going on and literally rimming the bases. well, that was it. I'm pretty happy with how the little Archo flagellants came out. They are very different to what I've painted so far in the army, but I'm quite happy that they look, I think, cohesive. I put them beside some of these sisters and they look like they belong in the army, which is really amazing in my opinion, because I went for like a quite different color and like combination, but I tried to keep like the idea behind the army, that desaturated tone in mind. I'm excited, and it's my first army in this new country, you know, so it's like, yay, I finished a whole really huge project and I'm quite proud of it. I know it's silly, you know, I just painted 5,000 points in a month or something like that in the past, but just slowly getting back into it. I was thinking of maybe opening a Discord for followers and subscribers and stuff, so we can just talk a little bit about everything there. So I would appreciate it if you let me know what you think about that idea down below. And if you want a little bit of a spoiler of what we're gonna be working on next, well, this journey to 11th edition may be finished, but there is a new journey in 11th edition coming up real soon, as it now seems. And I also want to get my custodies done, because I cannot just be happy that I finished one army and just keep updating it, you know, but I need to go ahead and do new things constantly all the time, because if I stay still, I will explode or something like that. But yes, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying. Bye-bye.